The date was October 15th, 1992, and Wembley Stadium in London held its breath as 77,000 souls waited in the electric darkness. The air itself seemed to vibrate with anticipation, thick with the dreams and hopes of fans who had traveled from every corner of the world to witness magic. In the distance, the gentle hum of excited whispers created a symphony of expectation, while the massive stage stood bathed in shadows, waiting for the moment that would transform an ordinary Thursday evening into something eternal. The smell of popcorn and cotton candy mixed with the autumn air, and somewhere in the crowd, a young girl named Sarah Mitchell sat with her hands folded in her lap, her eyes closed not by choice, but by the cruel hand of fate that had taken her sight when she was only 3 years old. She had dreamed of this moment for months, saving every penny from her paper route, convincing her parents that music could paint pictures more vivid than any canvas, that Michael Jackson's voice could show her colors she had never seen but somehow always known existed in her heart. The lights dimmed further, and suddenly the stadium erupted as a single spotlight pierced the darkness, revealing the silhouette of the king of pop himself. Michael Jackson appeared in his iconic black jacket adorned with golden military details, his sequined glove catching the light like captured starlight as he moved with the fluid grace of a man who understood that every gesture was a prayer, every step a promise to his audience. The opening chords of Black or White filled the air, and 77,000 voices joined in unison, creating a wall of sound that seemed to lift the very roof of the stadium toward the heavens. But as Michael began to sing, his voice cutting through the noise like silk through thunder, something extraordinary began to happen in section 47, row 12, seat 18, where Sarah Mitchell sat with tears streaming down her face, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming joy of finally being in the presence of her idol. As the first song reached its crescendo, the crowd's energy was palpable, a living thing that pulsed and breathed with each beat of the music. Mothers held their children on their shoulders, teenagers screamed until their voices cracked, and grown men found themselves weeping openly as childhood memories flooded back with each familiar melody. Michael moved across the stage like liquid poetry, his every movement deliberate and graceful, his voice soaring over the crowd like a bird freed from its cage. The second song began, then the third, and with each passing moment, the connection between performer and audience grew stronger, more electric, more profound. It was during the fourth song, She's Out of My Life, that something shifted in the cosmic alignment of that perfect evening, something that would be remembered and retold for decades to come, passed down from parent to child like a sacred story of human compassion and the power of music to heal wounds that medicine cannot touch. Michael had reached the emotional climax of the ballad, his voice breaking slightly as he sang the words that had made millions of people around the world examine their own hearts and relationships. The crowd swayed gently, lighters and phone screens creating a galaxy of tiny stars in the darkness, when suddenly, from section 47, a voice rose above the rest. It was pure, clear, and heartbreakingly beautiful, a young girl's voice singing along with perfect pitch and unlimited emotion. Sarah Mitchell, who had memorized every word of every Michael Jackson song ever recorded, was singing with her entire being, her voice carrying across the stadium with the kind of clarity that only comes from someone who has learned to see the world through sound alone. Her voice was like crystal, unmarked by the self-consciousness that often comes with age, untainted by the fear of judgment that silences so many dreams before they have a chance to take flight. Michael stopped mid-note, his mouth still open, his hand frozen in mid-gesture as this ethereal voice reached his ears. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the king of pop simply stood and listened, his eyes scanning the crowd, trying to locate the source of this angelic sound. The instrumental track continued to play, but Michael's microphone had gone silent as he searched, his hand shading his eyes against the bright stage lights. The crowd began to notice that something unusual was happening, and slowly, section by section, the singing died down as 77,000 people realized that their idol was no longer performing, but was instead listening intently, to one of their own. The stadium grew quieter and quieter until only Sarah's voice remained, floating through the air like a prayer made audible, her words clear and true and filled with a love so pure it seemed to transform the very molecules of the air around her. When Michael finally located the source of the voice, gesturing for the spotlight operator to illuminate section 47, the beam of light found Sarah Mitchell sitting with her head tilted back, her face turned toward the stage despite her inability to see it, her hands pressed together at her heart as she continued to sing. The light revealed her closed eyes, not squeezed shut in concentration, but peaceful and serene, and it was in that moment that Michael Jackson understood he was witnessing something sacred. The realization hit him like a physical force, and those who were close enough to the stage would later say they saw the exact moment when tears began to form in his eyes, the exact second when the king of pop became simply a man moved beyond words by the pure, unguarded expression of love and music flowing from this young girl's soul. Michael walked to the edge of the stage, the closest he could get to section 47, and held up his hand to signal for complete silence. The stadium obeyed instantly, 77,000 people holding their collective breath as their idol stood transfixed by the voice of one small girl. "Keep singing, Angel," Michael said into his microphone, his voice thick with emotion, and Sarah, hearing these words from her hero, felt her heart swell with such joy that her voice grew even stronger, even more beautiful. She continued with the chorus of "She's Out of My Life," and Michael, tears now flowing freely down his cheeks, began to sing with her, their voices blending in perfect harmony across the vast distance between stage and audience, between celebrity and fan, between the seen and the unseen worlds that music has always had the power to bridge. The duet lasted for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, with Michael encouraging Sarah to take the lead on certain verses while he provided harmonies that seemed to lift her voice even higher. The crowd watched in absolute silence, many of them crying openly as they witnessed this spontaneous moment of pure human connection. Mobile phones were not yet common in 1992, but those who had cameras struggled to capture this unrepeatable moment, though they would later realize that no photograph could have contained the emotion that filled Wembley Stadium that night. When the song finally ended, the silence that followed was not empty but full, pregnant with the kind of meaning that changes people's understanding of what is possible in this world, what magic can happen when barriers dissolve and hearts speak directly to other hearts without the interference of ego or expectation. Michael wiped his eyes with the back of his sequined glove and then did something that no one expected. He began to remove that famous glove, the one that had become as iconic as his moonwalk, as recognizable as his voice itself. The crowd gasped as they realized what was happening, and security guards looked at each other in confusion, unsure of protocol for a moment like this. Michael walked to the front of the stage and held the glove above his head, his voice carrying clearly through his microphone as he spoke directly to Sarah, though she could not see him. "Sarah," he said, having somehow learned her name in those magical minutes, "this is for you, Angel, for showing all of us what real music sounds like when it comes straight from the heart." The crowd erupted in applause so thunderous it seemed to shake the very foundations of the stadium. But Michael held up his hand for quiet once more, because he wasn't finished with his gift. The security team, understanding now what their job required of them, formed a protective corridor as Michael made his way down from the stage and into the crowd, something that had never happened before at a Wembley concert, something that would never happen again. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, creating a path for their idol as he walked directly towards section 47, his destination clear to everyone in the stadium. Each step he took was met with gasps and sobs from fans who couldn't believe they were witnessing this unprecedented moment of generosity and human kindness. Parents lifted their children higher, hoping for a glimpse of history in the making, while others simply stood in amazed silence, understanding that they were part of something that transcended entertainment and had entered the realm of legend. When Michael finally reached Sarah's row, he had to climb over several seats to get to her, his elaborate costume making the journey awkward, but his determination unwavering. Sarah's parents, sitting on either side of their daughter, were sobbing as they helped guide Michael to their girl, their hands shaking as they touched the shoulders of the man who had just honored their daughter in front of 77,000 witnesses. Michael knelt beside Sarah's seat, his face level with hers, and gently took her hands in his. "You have the most beautiful voice I've ever heard," he whispered, though his words were picked up by the wireless microphone he still wore and broadcast throughout the stadium. "I want you to have this, and every time you touch it, I want you to remember that you have a gift that can heal the world." Sarah's face was a portrait of disbelief and joy as Michael placed his iconic glove in her hands, guiding her fingers to feel the sequins and the soft leather, helping her understand through touch what she could not see with her eyes. Her tears fell onto the glove as she held it to her chest, and in that moment, everyone in Wembley Stadium understood they were witnessing something that would be talked about for generations, something that would be passed down in family stories and remembered in the moments when people needed to believe in the goodness of human nature. Michael kissed Sarah's forehead gently, and then stood up and began to make his way back to the stage, but not before turning to address the entire stadium one more time. "Tonight, Sarah has reminded all of us why we're here." Michael's voice carried across the hushed crowd, his words measured and heavy with meaning. "Music isn't about fame or fortune or selling records. Music is about connection, about love, about finding each other in the darkness and holding on tight. Sarah can't see the lights or the costumes or the stage, but she sees music better than any of us, and she's shown us all what it means to sing with your entire soul." The applause that followed was different from any that had come before, deeper and more meaningful. The sound of 77,000 people acknowledging that they had been changed by what they had witnessed, that they would carry this moment with them for the rest of their lives and beyond. As Michael returned to the stage, the concert resumed, but everyone knew that what had just happened was the real show, the moment that would define this night for all eternity. The remaining songs were performed with an extra intensity, an added emotional depth that seemed to flow directly from the connection that had been forged between performer and audience through the medium of one young girl's pure and fearless voice. Michael sang with a passion that surpassed even his legendary standards, his movements more fluid, his voice more powerful, as if Sarah's gift had unlocked something in him that had been waiting to be discovered. The crowd sang along with renewed energy, every voice now feeling precious and important, every individual feeling seen and valued in a way that only happens when barriers dissolve and humanity reveals its most beautiful face. If this story moves you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because these are the moments that remind us why Michael Jackson's legacy continues to touch hearts around the world, why his music still has the power to heal and inspire and bring people together across all the boundaries that usually divide us. The concert continued for another hour, but the emotional climax had already passed. The peak of human connection had already been reached in those precious minutes when a blind girl's voice taught 77,000 people how to truly see, how to recognize the sacred when it appears in the most unexpected forms, how to respond to beauty with the kind of generosity that transforms ordinary moments into eternal treasures. As the final notes of Man in the Mirror echoed through Wembley Stadium and the lights began to fade, Michael took his final bow with tears still glistening on his cheeks, his one remaining glove catching the spotlight as he waved goodbye to the crowd that had shared this impossible evening with him. The audience gave him a standing ovation that lasted for nearly 10 minutes. But many of them were also looking towards Section 47, where Sarah Mitchell sat, clutching her precious gift, her parents on either side of her still crying with joy and disbelief. The crowd began to file out slowly, reluctant to leave the sacred space that Wembley had become, many of them stopping to look back one more time, try to memorize every detail of the place where they had witnessed magic become real, where they had seen the king of pop become something even greater than a performer, had seen him become a vessel for the kind of love that changes the world one heart at a time. Years later, those who were there that night would still speak of it in hushed, reverent tones, the way people discuss miracles and divine interventions, moments when the ordinary rules of existence are suspended and something holy breaks through into the everyday world. They would tell their children and grandchildren about the night when Michael Jackson cried because a blind girl's voice was so beautiful it moved the king of pop to tears, about how he gave away his most famous possession to honor a fan who had shown him the true meaning of his own art. The story would be passed down through generations, growing more precious with each telling, becoming part of the mythology that surrounds great artists and great moments, the kind of legend that people need to believe in when the world seems too dark or too cruel to bear. Sarah Mitchell kept that glove for the rest of her life, sometimes taking it out on special occasions to feel the sequins and remember the night when her hero told her she had the most beautiful voice he had ever heard. She would go on to become a professional singer herself, recording several albums and performing in concert halls around the world, always crediting that moment at Wembley as the night she truly understood her gift and found the courage to share it with others. In interviews, she would often say that Michael Jackson didn't just give her a glove that night. He gave her permission to believe in herself, to understand that music could be a bridge between souls, that love expressed through art could heal wounds that seemed unhealable and bring light to places that seemed lost in permanent darkness. The glove itself would eventually find its way to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, donated by Sarah's family after her death many years later, displayed in a special case with a plaque that reads simply, "Given with love from Michael Jackson to Sarah Mitchell, whose voice reminded the world why music matters. Wembley Stadium, October 15th, 1992. Visitors to the museum often stop at this display longer than any other, many of them wiping away tears as they read the story and imagine what it must have been like to witness such spontaneous generosity, such pure human connection, such a perfect example of how art can transcend all the barriers that usually keep people apart and remind us that underneath all our differences, we are all just souls seeking beauty, love, and recognition in a world that often seems too busy to notice the sacred moments happening right in front of us. Like this video if this story touched your heart, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible moments from the life of the King of Pop, because these are the stories that remind us why Michael Jackson's legacy continues to inspire people around the world, why his music still has the power to heal and unite and transform ordinary moments into something extraordinary. The night at Wembley, when a blind girl's voice made the King of Pop cry, remains one of the most beautiful examples of what happens when barriers dissolve and hearts speak directly to other hearts. When fame and fortune become secondary to the simple human need to connect and share and recognize the divine spark that exists in every voice raised in song, every soul brave enough to offer its gift to the world without reservation or fear. Every moment when love conquers all the forces that try to keep us separated and alone in our individual struggles to find meaning and purpose in this beautiful, complicated, miraculous journey we call life.